Welcome back, language enthusiast. In today's video, we are diving into the world of subordinative conjunction. We have already learned about the coordinative conjunction. We are now learning about subordinative conjunction. Those are small words that pack a big punch in sentence structures. We will explore comma placement with subordinative conjunction, when to use them, when to skip them. We will take real life examples to see these rules in action. I will explain key differences between coordinative and subordinative conjunction, understanding their unique roles in sentence construction. Whether you're refining your writing skills or just curious about grammar, this video is for you. Let's get started and make your sentences more powerful and precise. Subordinative conjunction. Subordinative conjunction is a word that joins a dependent clause with an independent clause. Dependent clause is also known as subordinative clause. Independent clause is known as a principal clause, main clause. It introduces the dependent clause and shows a relationship between dependent and independent clause. So it's help in showing the relationship between the dependent and independent clause. A subordinative conjunction act as a link between the main clause and dependent clause. Act as a link between the dependent clause and independent clause. The main clause, which is a independent clause, which is a principal clause, contain the main idea of the sentence, while the dependent clause provides additional information. It always gives additional information, but cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. So dependent clause, as name, as the word indicates, it's totally depending on the main clause, principal clause, independent clause. It cannot stand alone. It cannot skip complete sentence without main clause. So an independent clause, about the independent clause, an independent clause has both a subject and a verb, and it gives complete meanings. For example, it was raining. It was raining is an independent clause. Here it is the subject and was raining is the verb. So it is an independent clause. It gives complete meaning. It can stand alone. So a dependent clause can about the dependent clause is a subordinative clause. It cannot exist independently and must be paired, must be used with an independent clause, must be used with a main clause, a principal clause, and then afterward it gives complete meaning. Example is given here. Subordinative conjunction is a word that links a subordinate clause to a main clause. Subordinate clause is a dependent clause. Main clause is principal clause, independent clause. Example is given. You may be disappointed if you fail. If you fail is subordinate clause. You may be disappointed is a main clause. Principal clause, independent clause. So main clause and subordinate clause is joined with the help of subordinative conjunction. And in this example, subordinative conjunction is if. Second example, if you don't try, you are doomed. If you don't try. So in this case, subordinative conjunction is present at the beginning of the sentence. So we have to use comma before starting the main clause. We have to use comma. If you don't try comma, it is a subordinate clause. Then you are doomed, you are failed, main clause. Subordinative conjunction is used to connect an independent clause to a dependent clause. Some subordinative conjunction are used to show cause and effect. Example, there are 4 examples are given in the slides. I took the week off work because of my illness. Tom will be late for school unless he catches the bus. Jared booked a train ticket so that he could travel to London on Tuesday. Jenny was upset that she did not pass the test since she had studied hard. So because of my illness is dependent clause and because is subordinative conjunction. Unless he catches the bus is subordinate clause, unless is subordinative conjunction. So that he could travel to London on Tuesday, it is a dependent clause, subordinative clause, and in this case, subordinative conjunction is so that. Since he had studied hard, so in this sentence, since he had studied hard is dependent clause, subordinate clause, and subordinative conjunction used in this sentence is since. So in all the 4 example, main clause are I took the week off work. The next second example, main clause is Tom will be late for school. Main clause. Jared booked a train ticket. Main clause. Jenny was upset that she did not pass the test. These main clause. So these all sentences can give complete meanings, can stand alone. This example shows cause and effects. All the examples show cause and effect. Now, next example, which are used to signaling relationship of time or place. Four examples are again given. The twins were allowed to watch TV after they completed their homework. After they completed their homework is subordinative clause, dependent clause, and this place after is subordinative conjunction. The twins were allowed to watch TV is a main clause, principal clause, independent clause because it can stand alone, can give complete sentence by itself. I can start making dinner once I know what time they are arriving. Once I know what time they are arriving is subordinate clause, dependent clause. Once is subordinative conjunction. I can start making dinner is a main clause. So this sentence is also showing the relationship of time. Ria feels scared whenever she sees a spider. Whenever she sees a spider is a dependent clause, and in this sentence, subordinative conjunction is whenever. Ria feels scared is main clause, showing the relationship of time or place. Nadia forgot to add the blueberries before she put the muffin in the oven. So before she put the muffins in the oven is a dependent clause. Subordinative clause and subordinative conjunction used is before. Nadia forget to add the blueberries is main clause. So these all four example, and before that the four example we have seen 8 example. In the 8 example we have seen that we are using subordinative conjunction in between the main clause and independent clause. Now look at the one more example. We can go for a walk this afternoon unless it starts to rain. In this sentence, unless is used between the main clause and independent clause. However, we can use it at the beginning of sentence in front of the subordinate clause also. Unless it starts to rain, we can go for a walk this afternoon. So we have used subordinative conjunction at the beginning of the subordinative clause. So if we are using like this, we have to use comma. Comma must be placed after the subordinate clause that follows it. So unless it is start to rain, then comma, then we have to start main clause. We can go for a walk this afternoon. So it is a rule of putting comma. When to use comma? Comma is used when we are using subordinative conjunction at the beginning of the sentence with subordinative clause. So all the example we have seen, what we have noticed that when a conjunction connects a main clause and dependent clause, a complex sentence is created. Means when we use dependent clause and independent clause, and that type of sentence is known as a complex sentence. About the comma, where to keep, where to write, it's another example is given. Because I was tired, I went to bed early. So because I was tired, comma, I went to bed early, the same rule will be applicable. After he finished his homework, he played video games. Same rule will be applicable. After he finished his homework, after is used is a subordinative conjunction. So we have used before, before at the beginning of the sentence. Subordinative conjunction is used at the beginning of the sentence. So after, it is a after. So after he finished his homework, we have to use comma. Then he played video games. He played video game is main clause. This is a rule of using comma. So subordinative conjunction plays a very important role. It plays a crucial role in indicating relationship between different parts of a sentence. It maintains hierarchy of ideas. It gives dependency or subordination of one clause to another. How dependent clause is totally dependent on principal clause. It gives correct information about the how to make the cohesive sentences, well-formed sentences. So cohesive means meaningful sentences, grammatically correct sentences. Subordinative conjunction also used to introduce dependent clause which cannot stand alone as complete sentences. We have known about this. Few examples are again given. He could not attend the party because he had to work. So always remember, points should be noted. Then when we are using the subordinative conjunction in the mid of the main clause and dependent clause, in the at the middle, if we are using no use of comma. When we are using subordinative conjunction at the beginning of subordinate clause, when we are starting the sentence with subordinate clause, that time we will use the comma. Although it was raining, they decided to go for a walk. So although it was raining, although is coming at the beginning of the sentence, which is a subordinative conjunction, so we are using comma. Although it was raining, comma, they decided to go for a walk. If it rains, comma, we will stay indoors. I will call you when I arrive at the airport. So in this sentence, no comma will be used because it is used between the main clause and dependent clause. Since it was her birthday, comma, we threw a surprise party. While I was cooking, comma, she set the table. After she finished her meal, comma, she went for a walk. Please finish your homework before you play video games. So in this case, no comma will be used because the first please finish your homework is a main clause. Before you play video games is subordinate clause. They will wait at the station until the train arrives. He stayed up all night for he had an important presentation. Now, subordinative conjunction is a word that links a subordinate clause to a main clause, dependent clause to a independent clause. So, few rule of subordinate clause we have seen in the previous slide also. Here given the four rule: time, place, reason, condition. Time for time, we can stay at the ball until the clock strikes midnight. For place, the carriage will be waiting where it dropped you. Reason, you must do as I say because your groan will turn back to rags. For condition, the horse and carriage will be gone if you are late. So in this case, the starting, you can stay at the ball, main clause. The carriage will be waiting, main clause. You must do as I say, main clause. The horse and carriage will be gone, main clause. Until the clock strikes midnight, subordinate clause, dependent clause, where it dropped you is subordinate clause, main clause. So like this, so until where, because if are subordinative conjunction, which is linking main clause with dependent clause, independent clause with dependent clause. Subordinative conjunction, for cause we are using as, because, and since. For purpose we are using so and so that. Contrasting, for comparing anything, for differentiating anything we are using although, though. Temporal, for indication of time we are using after, before, until, while, etc. For conditional indirect question, we are using if, unless, as long as, other than, or but, provided, whenever, whatever. For reported speech, indirect statement, consequential. For giving result, we use that. So subordinative conjunction are a type of conjunction that introduces a subordinative clause and stabilizes the relationship of dependence or subordination with the main clause. They are used to show various type of relationship. First one is cause, effect, time, condition, concession, contrast, and purpose. So many relationship with the help of subordinative conjunction we are giving. Few example are again given for because it indicate the cause or reason for something. Because when we are using the subordinative conjunction, because it means it shows a cause or reason for something. Although or though, it shows a contrast or concession or comparison between two ideas. Contrast or concession. Contrast or concession we are using although or though. If conditional clause, it introduces a conditional clause when indicates a time relationship or condition. Since, a cause or time relationship, while a simultaneous action or condition. It denotes a simultaneous action or condition. After, it indicates that an action or event occur following another. Before, it denotes an action or events occurs prior to another, before to another. It signifies the continuation of an action or event until a specific time. That is until. 4. It introduces a clause indicating the duration of an action or event. So there is a mnemonic for a coordinative conjunction, a white bus. A for as, after, although. W for when, whenever, where, wherever, while. H for how, however. I for if. T for then, though. E for even if, even though. B for before, because. U for useless, until. S for so that, since. Few example, we have to just acquire the knowledge deeply. For comparison between clauses, this subordinative conjunction can be used. Whereas Tim looked chocolate, whereas Sally preferred a candy. Whereas is subordinative conjunction in this sentence. Someone has to speak in public, whether it is for you or me. Whether is subordinative conjunction. Someone has to speak in public, whether it is you or me. She can run faster than her brother. Then is subordinative conjunction. And all these whereas, whether, then, as is showing comparison. They are not as wealthy as their neighbors. As wealthy as their neighbors. So it's showing comparison, and as is a subordinative conjunction in this place, as. Concession, it shows an unexpected contrasting situation within a sentence. Although she was tired, she continued working on the project. We went for a run even though it was cold outside. While I enjoy hiking, I am not a fan of camping. Although I am going to work, I do much rather stay home. Although I am going to work, I do much rather stay home. Sally is heading to the park today despite the rain. So these, even though, while, although, despite, these are subordinate conjunction which shows an unexpected or contrasting situation within a sentence. Condition. Subordinative conjunction. Few subordinative conjunction introduce a clause which gives a condition or requirement for the main clause to occur. What are the requirement for the main clause to occur? If she studies hard, she will pass the exam. We will go for a walk unless it rains. Unless you can convince her to be nice, I am not coming to dinner. Tim was not willing to work extra hours in case he missed the big game. So in this case, if, unless, in case are used to shows the requirement for the main clause to occur. Time. Time subordinative conjunction is also used to shows the time, to indicate timing or relationship between different events. After, before, once, when. She went to the store after she finished her homework. Complete your task before you go to bed. Once the dish is prepared, serve it immediately. We will have a picnic when the weather is nicer. After Valentine's Day is over, we will go out to eat. Sally made it to the front of the line before it was time for lunch. So these are the examples of time subordinative conjunction. Time subordinative conjunction after, before, once, when. These are the time subordinative conjunctions. For place, subordinative conjunction is place related, which gives location of the relationship between two places. Where, wherever. They always meet where the two roads intersect. She follows him wherever he goes. The pirate hide the gold where nobody could ever find it. Wherever possible, you should switch your groceries for healthier alternatives. So these are the subordinative conjunction where, wherever, which indicates place-related subordinative conjunction. Now about few subordinative conjunction which are showing about the cause and effect, which are showing relationship in a complex sentence indicating cause and effect. Because she decided to stay at home because it was raining. So because what sentence we have used? She decided to stay at home because it was raining. She decided to stay at home because it was raining. For since sentences, since she finished his homework early, he had time to watch a movie. Since he finished his work early, he had time to watch a movie. As they chose the blue paint as it matched the curtain. So for cause and effect, we have used three subordinative conjunction: because, since, as, which indicates cause and effect relationship in a complex sentence. It shows manner also. Example, Tim started to dig as if his life depended on it. Sally cried as though she were a baby. It shows manner. It subordinative conjunction shows reason also in between the two clauses. We ate early because we were hungry. Sally arrived late so that she would not have to see her boss. So these are the subordinative conjunction which are related with the different meanings and different types of subordinative conjunction. How to use and punctuate subordinative conjunction, we have seen, we have learned that one. The placement of subordinative conjunction impacts the punctuation. It depends on whether the subordinative conjunction starts the sentence or comes later. It's totally depend on then when to use the comma. These are the rules around using comma with this conjunction. Comma placement in subordinative conjunction. Example is given again. Sally is heading to the park today despite the rain. In this case, no comma is needed because this sentence can be, we can main clause and dependent clause, and despite is the subordinative conjunction. So in this case, no comma should be used, no comma is needed. But if we use the subordinative conjunction at the beginning of the sentence with subordinate clause, we have to use the comma. We can rearrange this sentence like this. Despite the rain, Sally is heading to the park today. So despite the rain, we have to use then comma, then Sally is heading to the park today. Sally is heading to the park today, main clause. So when the dependent clause comes first, a comma is used. When the subordinate clause comes first, we have to use a comma. This is a general rule for separating the clauses. If the dependent clause is before the main clause, uses a comma. The word so can function as both as coordinative and subordinative conjunction. When used to express a result or consequence, it is coordinative conjunction. When so word is used to give a meaning of result, to give a meaning of consequence between the two clauses, it is a coordinative conjunction. Coordinative conjunction joining two independent clauses. So in this case, because we are forming two independent clauses. So when the result for so is coming, consequence or result, it is a coordinative conjunction. However, when it is used to mean in order that so that it becomes a subordinative conjunction. So meaning is coming so that or in order that in it that place it becomes a subordinative conjunction. It links between main clause and dependent clause. Look at the example. So joins two independent clauses. It typically means therefore or as a result. I studied hard, so I passed the exam. I studied hard, independent clause. I passed the exam, independent clause. So when in this, it's showing the result, the consequences. It is a coordinative conjunction joining to independent clauses. Next example, I studied hard so that I would pass the exam. I studied hard so that I would pass the exam. In this case, the meaning is coming so that. So it is totally the dependent clause is dependent into the independent clause, main clause. So it is a subordinative conjunction. So in essence, when so is used to connect two independent clauses, it is coordinative conjunction. In the first example, we have seen I studied hard, so I passed the exam. In this case, so is a coordinative conjunction. I studied hard so that I would pass the exam. So that is in this place, it is a subordinative conjunction. It introduces a dependent clause and function as in order that or so that. Few example: comparison, time, concession, condition, manner, reason. Relative pronouns, relative adjectives, which we will learn in the next video. Relative adjectives: that, whatever, which, whichever. Relative pronouns: who, whoever, whomever, whose. So we will learn in the next video. Few example are again given before. Finish your work before you leave. If it rains, we will stay inside. Call me when you arrive. Even though it was cold, he wore shorts. For a while, he read a book while waiting for the bus. After, we can eat after the movie. Although it was raining, we went out. Use of because, she stayed home because she was sick. Use of since in sentence: since you are here, let's start the meeting. Unless in a sentence: you can't go out unless you finish your homework. Use of while in a sentence: he read a book while waiting for the bus. For after, we can eat after the movie. Now some easy example of subordinative conjunction. Keep your hand on the wound until the bleeding stops. Until the bleeding or stop is subordinative clause, which is giving a sets a time, which is indicating about the time until the bleeding stops. Steve will sleep whenever there is a bed. Wherever there is a bed. Wherever there is a bed is a subordinative conjunction, subordinative clause. Wherever is subordinative conjunction, and this subordinative clause indicating about a place. Steve will sleep is main clause. She left early because Tony arrived with his new girlfriend. Because Tony arrived with his new girlfriend, subordinate clause, and it gives a reason. She left early. Main clause. If it rains, the bet is off. It shows a condition. So, it's subordinate clause. We have seen the many example of concession and comparison in the previous slide. Also, here also few examples are given. Even though she has no money, she will still look $1,000,000. So, even though, it gives about the concession. The subordinate clause of concession are even though, although, and though, which keeps about the concession, about the comparison. I succeed, I will succeed, whereas you will fail. It sets a comparison. I will succeed, whereas you will fail. Few real life example of subordinative conjunction. I find television very educating. Every time somebody turns on the set, I go into the other room and read a book. These are words of comedian Groucho Marx. He said this. So this subordinate clause stabilizes a time for the main clause. So every time somebody turns on the set, it is subordinate clause which gives a time for the main clause. I find television very educating. Next example, wherever the art of medicine is loved, there is a love of humanity. It was saying of Greek physician Hippocrates. So in this, the subordinate clause indicating about a establishing about a place. Wherever the art of medicine is love, subordinate clause. There is a love of humanity's main clause. People are more violently opposed to fur than leather because it is safer to harass rich women than motorcycle gangs. So because it is safer to harass rich women than motorcycle gangs, it's a reason. It's giving a reason for the main clause. Main clause is people are more violently opposed to the fur than leather. It's giving a reason. Now, main is ready to die for an idea, provided that idea is not quite clear to him. It was said by author Paul Eldridge. So it gives a condition for the main clause. Main clause is main is ready to die for an idea. I am always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught, said by Winston Churchill. Although I do not always being taught. So it stabilizes a concession or comparison for the main clause. I'm always ready to learn. Main clause. Everyone else, my age is an adult, whereas I'm merely in disguise. So this word was for poet Margaret Atwood. It gives a comparison for the main clause. Main clause, everyone else my age is an adult. So with one main clause and one subordinate clause, every example is a complex sentence. Complex sentence is a combination of dependent clause, independent clause. Few examples that I am told that you are miserable. Now that example, now that we are ready to start, why don't we start? Though example, I'm studying in, though I wish I were not. Although example, although it was cold, we went for a walk. As though example, he act as though he's the king of the world. How example, I wonder how you did it. However, example, Sachin played well. However, we have lost the match. In case example, take an umbrella in case it rains. In order to, or that example, in order to buy a car, he needs to save money. In spite of example, he looks very fit in spite of his age. He looks very fit in spite of his age. Since example, I have been in love. I have been in love since I saw you. I have been in love since I saw you. Then example, I see you often, then I see him. I see you often, then see him, then him. You can say like this also. Rather than example, we want the matter settled sooner rather than later. Rather than example, we want the matter settled sooner rather than later. We want the matter settled sooner rather than later. Till example, just sit here till I come back. Just sit here till I come back. Until example, I had to wait until they had finished. I had to wait until they had finished. So example, John works so that he can pay his bills. Because example, I'm studying in because it is raining. Before example, we moved to London before the war. After example, I'm going out after the football has finished. Except example, he looks handsome except when he sleeps. Except example, he looks handsome except when he sleeps. Only example, the day is pleasant, only rather cold. The day is pleasant, only rather cold. Once example, Ria was able to swim once her cast was removed. Ria was able to swim once her cast was removed. Otherwise, example, look at the map because otherwise you will get lost. Neither example, they did not go to the party and neither did I. They did not go to the party and neither did I. Unless example, I am going out unless it rains. What example? I don't know what to do. Where example? The carriage will be waiting where it dropped you. When example, I woke up when my baby was crying. Whenever example, whenever I smiled, she smiled back. Whenever example, whenever I smiled, she smiled back. Whereas example, I will succeed, whereas you will fail. I will succeed, whereas you will fail. While example, while there is life, there is hope. While example, while there is life, there is hope. Whilst example, he watched a movie whilst running on a treadmill. He watched a movie whilst running on a treadmill. Without example, I shall not do the work without you. I shall not do the work without you. Wherever example, wherever he went, he took his puppy with him. Whether example, I'm going home whether you like it or not. I'm going home whether you like it or not. So these are the example we have seen. Many example we have seen for reason, comparison, condition, time, concession, and we have seen many examples. Worksheet is given here. Try to solve it by own. Then afterward, the answer is given in the slides. First, to try to solve it by own. Now, there is some difference between coordinative and subordinative conjunction. No need to be confused between the subordinative and coordinative conjunction. Coordinative conjunction always link two important clauses to independent clauses. The coordinative conjunction always join two independent clauses. So we have fanboys, mnemonics, we have learned this one, known this one. Subordinative conjunction joins independent clauses with independent clauses. Coordinative conjunction, two independent clauses. Subordinative conjunction between independent clauses and dependent clauses. What are the differences? Coordinative conjunction links two words, two or more words, two or more phrases, clauses, or sentences of equal importance. Most important thing, coordinative conjunction link words, phrases, sentences of equal importance. Their connection is weak. It always join independent clauses. It gives rise to compound sentences. Compound sentences, there is always presence of two clauses. The two clauses are independent clauses. Coordinative conjunction in between two, always used in between two clauses, mostly used in between two clauses. Subordinative conjunction link dependent, independent clauses. Strong connection. It always gives rise to complex sentences. Sometimes it used at the beginning of a sentence also or between two clauses also. So these are the key differences we have seen. Coordinative conjunction join two word clauses sentences of same grammatical relevance. Linking word that joins subordinative conjunction joins dependent clause with an independent clause. With the connection formed with the help of coordinator is weaker in comparison to the connection formed by subordinator. So subordinative conjunction is weaker than subordinative conjunction. The sentence formed after adding a coordinative conjunction is always a compound sentence linked to independent clauses. Complex sentence, there is a one dependent, independent clauses and complex sentences formed. Coordinative conjunction, we have learned the mnemonics fanboys. If we connect, the few rules are also, if we connect two main clauses with coordinative conjunction, we add a comma before the coordinative conjunction such that main clause, comma, coordinative conjunction plus main clause. We have seen this one in my coordinative conjunction video. If we connect two grammatical elements or units, we use coordinative conjunction in this way. Unit 1 plus coordinative conjunction plus unit 2. Third rule is if we connect three or more units in a series, we use a comma before the coordinative conjunction in this way. Unit 1, unit 2, comma plus coordinative conjunction plus unit 3. All the example is given in my coordinative conjunction video. Definition of subordinative conjunction. We have learned quite lots of knowledge about the subordinative conjunction, its types. So when the subordinative clause starts with relative pronouns such as who, whose, where, which, etc., the use of comma depends on the nature of clause. In writing, there are two patterns that use subordinative clause. Relative clause, I will make separate video. So main clause plus essential relative clause. If the information provided in the relative clause is essential, we do not use a comma. If the information provided in the relative clause is non-essential, not important, we use a comma before the conjunction. Main clause plus comma plus non-essential relative clause. So why subordinative conjunction are important? Because it's a very important to connect to make a link between the dependent clause and independent clause. Rules we have learned, put a comma after a few rules also about the adverbial clause also. What is adverbial clause? We will learn in the next video. So when a subordinate clause functioning as an adverb starts a sentence, separate it from the main clause with a comma. If you see suit at mines, should you use a silencer in this? If you suit at mines, means say this is a adverbial clause. In this case, we have to use the comma. So to use a silencer is a main clause. Now that I'm over 60, I am veering toward respectability. This was it was said by actress Sally Winters. Now that I'm over 60 is an adverbial clause, so we have to use comma. I'm veering toward respectability. Veering means I'm turning toward respectability. So these are often called fronted adverbial clauses. A comma is used with a fronted adverbial clauses because the comma makes it clear where the main clause starts. Same again for adverbial clause. When a subordinate clause ends such a sentence, you can drop the comma. Should you use a silencer? If you suit it means no comma should be used because subordinate clause ends a sentence. Ending is sentence when subordinate clause end a sentence, no comma should be used. I am veering toward respectability now that I am over 60, no comma should be used because now that I am over 60 is subordinate clause, no comma should be used. And main clause is I am veering toward respectability. Point third is there is a quirk though. You can use a comma for a deliberate pause. If you're deliberately using a pause, that time we have to use a comma. Money is better than poverty comma if only for financial reason. So these were these it was said by film director Woody Allen. So money is better than poverty. Money is better than poverty, comma if only for financial reason. In this case, we are deliberately pausing, keeping a pause. So we have to use the comma. Man is ready to die for an idea provided that idea is not quite clear to him. Provided that idea is not clear to him is subordinate clause. Main clause is man is ready to die for an idea. It is a main clause, but we are using a comma because we are using it, giving a quick thought. We are giving a deliberate pause. We are deliberately explaining that statements. So this is the reason we are using comma here. In case of adverbial clause, few example of subordinative conjunction is given. You can go through it. So key points we have learned. If your subordinate conjunction heads up a clause at the start of your sentence, offset the clause with a comma. We have seen so many examples of this. Don't use a comma if your subordinate conjunction heads up a clause at the back of your sentence. If you're using a subordinate clause at the back of your sentence, no use of comma unless you need to put some distance between the subordinate clause and the main clause. So we have known how to use a comma, when to use the comma, and a comma used for adverbial clause also. So the coordinative conjunction joins two elements of a similar kind, whether the subordinative conjunction join the subordinative clause with the main clause to provide extra details.